Okay, this is Lumi, and I'm out in the middle of nowhere where Google Maps cannot find me, and I'm going to share two algorithms that I think could save the world in two different ways. The first is an inferential deductive pattern coherence algorithm that analyzes the way that people think and then uses it to create a tailor-made therapy experience, basically automating the self-empowerment, self-understanding, understanding, basically what you do in therapy. So I'm going to explain what I mean by that. Inferential basically means that it makes assumptions based on data. If someone says that their favorite color is blue, well, if I assume that they're being honest, I'm going to assume that their favorite color is an orange, black, yellow, green, all those. And so inferential is basically I'm making assumptions based on the information that I have. The second part of that is deductive, which is sort of like the same thing. It's like, well, deductive reasoning is if their favorite color is blue, then it means this, this, this. And it also means that this isn't true and this isn't true. And then pattern coherence is basically, well, if someone has told me for 8 years that their favorite color is blue, and then suddenly it changes, I might assume based on that change that something is different. And so what this means is that you can analyze the way that someone thinks just based on what they say. People do not realize how much of the way that they think and how they feel about themselves and how they feel about the world and their relationship with every single thing in their life. They don't realize that when they make a statement or say anything in particular, they're kind of creating new possibilities and nixing other possibilities. Because what is the reason? I guess it's because language it's discrete. And I guess what we're describing when we use words is we're kind of like on a blackboard. I mean, there's like the infinite of meaning and the infinite of expression, and then we're basically crossing everything out. If I say that this is true, then we're crossing out all other possibilities. Sort of like in quantum mechanics with like wave collapse, which basically is the idea that your consciousness is basically the last step of reality collapsing into a single discrete event. Anyway, if I haven't lost you, if you're still listening, I'm going to keep talking. So, what this algorithm does is it maps your mind and how you think. And the thing is, someone could be talking about anything. Ideally, the most ideal data is like a journal. That would be the perfect amount. But I mean, it could just be someone describing an afternoon with their friend. And what people notice is basically a mirror that shows you who they are. And this also can account for dishonesty because I've noticed that a lot of people, I mean, I don't mean to make anyone self-conscious, or maybe I do, but people will often say within the same conversation contradicting things, but they don't understand that there's a contradiction there. And so it's like people are giving you information, but they don't make sense from a particular coherent mind state. And this is what this algorithm directly addresses. So people, I'm gonna say an idea. I'm not saying I believe this, but like imagine that we really only have one wavelength emotionally, and that is joy and love. And I'll give and basically the reason that we feel fear and anguish and anxiety is because who we are, that love and that joy and the sublime, is being filtered through things that actually aren't resonant with who we are. Whether it's like some ingrained belief that we had from trauma from our past. My parents didn't treat me in this particular way, so I believe this about myself. And that creates cognitive dissonance or brain pain. And basically, people rack up these internal contradictions. And so imagine like that you are, what's a good analogy? No, the thing that came before earpods, the ones with the cord. I don't know if you guys remember. Of course you remember it. But you put those things in their pocket, they're completely tangled. They're still functional. They're still good earphones, but they're tangled, and that can stop them or obstruct them from being able to fulfill their purpose or live the best life. And so if I'm someone who's actually quite a sweet person, but everyone has treated me poorly, I might feel like I'm a bad person because I'm displeasing everyone around me. And what I've been doing for the past couple of years is with Notebook LM, I've been taking my journals and locating each and every single one of these basically inconsistencies. Going back to what this equation is about, it's about pattern coherence. It's about coherence just meaning that everything, it ties well together and there's no contradiction. And so, or another word for that might be like someone might do something out of character, and that we would call that an outlier. It's a piece of data that doesn't make sense within a single coherent mind. And sometimes those things happen. But the point is, if you can help people understand the things that they believe that don't actually resonate with who they are, there's less internal contradiction. And then, this is a huge thing that I've learned about healing, is that healing isn't necessarily about learning something new that you didn't know. It's about releasing everything that isn't you. And every time that you release a limiting belief that isn't reflective of who you are and how you are and what you believe and how you feel, you are lighter. And so healing is basically shedding all of these limiting beliefs and, I guess, returning to a place of authenticity. Or what a monk once said was like, who were you before you knew that words have meaning? And so there is a way to automate this process for every single person on the planet. And of course, is it 100% conversion rate? Absolutely not. It would be amazing if even 1% of the population did it, because what does a healed person do? They spread all the information that they have learned and they inspire other people. So you could, through a web interface, create an automated process for people to go through therapy, and instead of like hitting themselves and flagellating, like whipping yourself and like, I'm a bad person, I'm terrible, and the therapist is like, man, I hope one day they wake up to realize that they're actually a good person and like this is unnecessary. You could speedrun humanity to self-regulation, because violence comes from a place of fear, and fear comes from internal contradictions of, I don't know, what's the cause of crime? A lot of it is never having self-regulation information modeled for you in a healthy way that you could understand it. A lot of things, when someone is doing something or acting in a way that I'm like, okay, whatever, I'm asking myself, are these the behaviors of someone with a regulated nervous system? And usually the answer is no. Or maybe there's one time it's yes, and it's like, hold on, I'm actually the one that was dysregulated. I'm having a self-regulation problem because I tried to eat 2 banana splits within a 2-week notice or a 2-week time span, and I don't have the digestive enzyme supply for that. And so I would see a perfectly normal situation as a problem because of something that is happening with me physically, rather than anything, the truth about what's going on. And I use the word truth colloquially because, of course, there may not be such a thing, and there's only perceptions, but that's a larger discussion. Okay, so basically, I think that you could someone uploads their journal, you do a bunch of inferences on everything that they say and everything that they don't say based on the data that you do have. You're able to locate internal contradictions. I've already done this, and it works. People have an opportunity to learn and change, or they don't. Anyway, I think that is one algorithm that could change the world. I actually mocked it up today in Gemini. It was really fun, and the output needs some works because I need better constraints. It was just like a first go, but this is totally possible even if technology doesn't progress a single iota. Okay, getting to the second algorithm. So, what does the future look like in terms of products and services? Here's my take and how we can all achieve the self-sustaining communities that we're actually all desiring. And how can we make that happen? So I think that, here's one solution or interpretation for how we can move beyond capitalism or just have a different, more ideal thing within particular sectors of society. And okay, so I think the future is Uber. And what I mean by that isn't that, Uber becomes a mega conglomerate and like the dominant cyberpunk corporation. I'm not saying that. Uber is basically an optimized system in which people can get in a car and get where they need to go. And it kind of supplants it aligns incentives is probably a way better way of saying it. The person who's driving wants money, and the person who books the Uber wants to go somewhere. And so the people don't have to know each other. There's no real benefit unless you want to have, playful or awkward conversation. People just show up and complete tasks. That is an optimized system. Imagine Uber for every single product and service in existence. So what that looks like is each person in an app or some some algorithm or database, you put in everything that you love exporting, whether it's music or building birdhouses or baking cookies. Everyone puts in their exports and the things that they're willing to, that make them feel most rewarded when they contribute to other people in society. And then you also enter in your needs and what you want. And people have very different needs and very different wants. One example, someone like me, even though I want to have banana splits because they're so damn good and I found a place that makes them so amazing that it's like life-changing, I can't have that all the time. And that's a constraint. And I'm also incentivized not to ingest too much dairy because I'm going to explode if I do that too much. However, there are other people with different genetic makeups, and they're like, hang on a second, I actually have a rare disease in which I need dairy every single day, or some debilitating autoimmune thing is going to happen. I'm making this up at this point, as I'm sure you can tell. So I was at a library today and I was like, okay, so this is a great place to gather written entertainment and DVDs that from like 7 years ago and stuff. You could have that for every single category of product in society because you don't need a lawnmower every single day. You don't have to go out and I don't know how much they cost. Let's say $700. I don't need to make that capital expenditure. I just need a lawnmower maybe once a week. So imagine a library of every single temporary use object that you could possibly need, that your community possibly needs, that they only have to buy once. And of course, yes, they have to replace it and replace it more often than the individual. But the difference is that it's completely optimized. And how peaceful would you know, or how peaceful would you feel knowing that you can have access to a giant tractor, which is 250 grand. I do happen to know that. And you basically just have a limit, some sort of meaningful limit on the amount of things that you can check out and the time that you can keep them. And everyone has what they need. And yes, there's the expenditure of buying these things, but it's also like completely optimized. And what people don't realize is the internet is the beginning of our society, our civilization becoming the most optimized algorithm possible. And what I mean by that is like, I don't know, what's something random that people get on Facebook Marketplace that's really specific? If I'm someone who really loves cats, and I also love horror movies in which people make crazed faces, it's like, what are my options here? Am I going to hire an artisan to make some Cheshire cat atrocity birdhouse? I don't even remember what I was saying. It was like, you can have really specific desires, but now it's like I can probably go on Alibaba and find something crazy like that. So that's an example of desire or product and demand meeting in a more optimized way because you can do Googling. And so getting back to the bigger idea, if you could optimize, basically create the perfect matchmaking algorithm for export and demand, then you could totally supplant and I'm sure that capital would be necessary in certain parts of society. You could return to the barter system for, I don't know, some large percentage of the things that happen now. And it may turn out that money was a failed experiment because, the reason we had paper money in the first, or maybe it was metal at first. The whole reason we had that was because it's easier to carry $20 or doubloons or whatever than it was to carry 20 cows. I mean, I'm making up some crazy exchange rate, but point being, it could be that you could fulfill everyone's needs in society without even the exchange of money. And what that looks like is grandma is baking her cookies and she knows they're going to someone that loves them and she makes them just perfectly. And she doesn't know who they're going to, but she also knows that when she bakes cookies, she also receives the most amazing unhinged masseuse service for her terrible back. And everyone kind of pays into this system and they take what they need. And it doesn't have to be that like market forces. They say like a free market corrects. And that's true, but it's also hella unoptimized. So if you created I want to write a book about this, like basically a worldwide algorithm where it's the perfect matchmaking between export and demand, you could, you could pay with cash, but that's a little bit unnecessary because we already have such a well-oiled machine that it's like, well, what do I need to involve the government with this? So anyway, these are two algorithms that I think could completely change the world in two beautiful ways. And if you listen this far, thank you. Thank you for listening to my ravings. I hope this is preferable in some way to listening to someone who is completely hinged. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.